And I remember getting prescription for Ozempic. I'd read some of the studies about how there were really good cardiac, there's cardiac protectivity from taking it and just a lot of benefits. We live in a world where people are looking for shortcuts. We figure out, how can we get more stuff done? How can we be more efficient? I went to pick it up and thought to myself, you're trying to do this the easy way, and I know there's a better way to do it.
Hey, it's Charles D'Angelo. Today, I'm joined by one of my clients, Dr. Matt Ullman, a man who not only earned a medical degree from Duke University, but also a bioengineering degree from the University of Washington. Very bright guy, was struggling with his weight. Listen to what he has to say about how he was able to transform his work all through Zoom coaching. So what was it that finally led you to that moment that you decided I had to do something? I mean, we were almost 100 pounds overweight when you and I started, right? So
Yeah.
Was there a defining moment, something that happened, something you saw, something you heard, some data you got about your health? What was it for you that really led you to that moment to reach out for help?
So what was it that led me to the moment to call Charles D'Angelo? I saw my primary doc in December of, I guess it was end of 2024, it would have been. Kind of hemmed and hawed on things, again, tried a lot of the same stuff. And then in late May, early April of 2025, we visited Australia. My wife has some family there. And it had been about 10 or I think it had been 10 years since we'd been there. And they'd never met any of the boys. And so we ended up flying through San Francisco, had a close layover, and that was a day where, for whatever reason, there were no trams or anything that were going. And so about 10 o'clock at night, we are trucking through the airport. I'm carrying a kid on my back and a couple of bags and things. We got to the gate. They basically held it for us. It was awesome. We were the last people on the plane. We sat down, and 2 hours into the flight, my watch was still beeping at me saying, "Hey, your heart rate is up. Are you working out? It doesn't look like you're moving." And I just remember thinking to myself as I was kind of sitting there, having just now cooled off, 90 minutes into the flight, kind of uncomfortably sitting in this chair that didn't recline a bunch. I was like, this is not healthy. This isn't great. I got to a point then where on that trip, I said, God, I got to do something different because I've been trying this. I've been trying to fix this forever. Things will work for a little bit, but I'll lose 10 pounds. And then I kind of fizzle out. And so when we got back, that was when I finally decided, you know what, I got to do something different. You were the person that had come up. And so that's when I sent you an email. You responded real quick. And I think I think I was on a Friday and we talked on the Monday.
What do the kids think about the transformation?
What do the kids think about the transformation? They have been great little cheerleaders for me. The funniest thing was they're like, "Hey, Dad, I see you're eating chicken and broccoli again. How is it?" Or my oldest would be like, it is part of a conversation starter. Gabe would say things like, "So how's the weight loss going? Stuff going well?" And it was fun for them to be able to be like, "Okay, I remember when Dad was a lot bigger, and now I feel like I'm able to, back to your concrete question of concrete things. I love playing with the kids. I like being the one that jumps in a pool. We were in Vietnam recently and we were at this this waterfall that the kids were swimming in. And I thought, I want to go swimming and I'm not worried about anything now. So I'm just going to go jump in."
Yes.
And stuff like that those little changes where previously it would have been "Nah, I'm going to have a beer and sit here." Now it's
things you don't even think about.
No, those are the things, I guess, if I had to write down at the beginning, the things that I had hoped would change. It's the energy to be able to be the fun dad and the one who go do stuff, go chase everybody, go have a race with everyone. And now, the fact that I can go running for a half an hour doesn't mean I'm going to be sweaty and out of breath for the next 2 days. So yeah, it's, all in all, it's been really good.
Neither you nor I are anti-medication, but I'm definitely pro-transformation. So with that in mind, what would you say about all the people who are jumping into the GLP-1 boat, taking that route and not addressing the issues that you've worked so hard in addressing through the program?
I think folks, I've seen people that come off of the medicines and their weight loss their weight comes right back. And I
4 to 5 times faster.
Yeah, and that's when and that's the thing where you say, you know what, this works really, really well. Are we addressing sort of the underlying issue?
And lastly, as we bring this to a close, what would you say to another doctor or professional who might feel skeptical, feeling like there's no way I can do what this guy has done? I mean, he's lost 100 pounds, but good for him. But there's no way I have what it takes. There's just no way I can see myself doing this. What advice would you have for another physician or a professional who feels that way about coaching?
Yeah. So what advice would I have for another doc or professional who thinks they can't do this? Yeah. Take the first step of just call and talk. I remember when we first chatted, you came across with the appropriate amount of intensity and, it sort of challenged me a little bit, which was good. I remember telling you said, how do you feel? And I said, well, I don't feel bad. And you said, I get that. You're you're really unhealthy though. And this isn't good for you. And being able to, taking that first step and actually just going and talking. Because again, I had gone through the same stuff where it's like, oh, this is great that this dude lost a ton of weight, but I'm sure he's taken something or he has more time than me. It really was it was sort of taking that first step and finally deciding, all right, I actually want to do something different. And again, in my mind, going to somebody who had a track record of doing this, it's no different than if I have a friend that comes down with some weird, condition or a mass or something, or has a diagnosis and they say, look, what do I do about this? I say, all right, here are the best people that I know about and the best people to get you to do this. That was ultimately how I had to approach this, of saying, all right, who's really good at this? Who's done this? Who do I have and isn't just saying, look how good I am, but can say, here are people. And then I can talk to those people. And then actually going and doing it, again, has been really, really beneficial. And it was not, again, it sounds really cliche of this, oh, it's not hard. It's just dedicated. And you sort of demonstrated that it's look, you just got to get your butt in gear. You got to make a decision. You just got to stick to it. And any physician, certainly anybody who's gone through med school and absolutely through residency, you can put in the work. And this just became part of my day and part of how I approach things. And it honestly, in a lot of aspects, made it easier to say, look, I know what I'm eating. I tell patients, they say, oh God, how'd you lose all this weight? And it's I eat a lot of salads and, Charles tells me what I'm supposed to do to work out. And it's pretty straightforward and you just got to stick with it for a long time.
Many people have the fear that they would be hungry. What do you have to say about that?
People have fear that they'll be hungry. I have been full way more often. And I also figured out, was I eating because I was just thinking about, oh, it'd be nice to eat, or something sounded good, or because I was actually hungry? And that was the thing, I remember thinking a couple years ago, oh, a lot of people who are on, getting healthy, they eat things like almonds. I'll get almonds. And you have had me eat almonds. You have me eat 25 of them at 9:30 in the morning, not handfuls throughout the day. And that's the stuff where I've paid a lot of attention to what am I eating that's really salty? That's the stuff that stimulates my drive. I'm a big savory person, and you address a lot of those things, but say, look, here's what you get, and then listen to your body. If I'm starving a little bit later, you've said, okay, let's adjust some of this stuff, and maybe you need a little bit more protein later, or do you need to put another scoop of something in your shake? But I have not been, I was worried that I was going to be hungry a lot of the time, and I really haven't been.
And if you had one final piece of advice for someone who's watching this and just is on the fence, what would that be for them?
My piece of advice for people would be call and talk to you, and also talk to people that have gone through the program, because it seems daunting. We see big numbers and we see, 100 pounds, and you think, holy crap, that's not only is it a lot, but everybody who's coming to you knows how hard it is to lose weight. And it seems like something where it's just going to be this absolute drag forever. And really, at least for me, I have not found it to be that. I found it to be It's taught me a lot about eating. It's taught me a lot about myself. And ultimately, like I think it's probably added years to my life.
Great job.
And like I said, I think it's added years to my life, and it's stuff where I'm able to enjoy things more. I'm able to interact with my kids more. My wife, sees that I'm doing something hard that is for the benefit, like both for my benefit and then for the benefit of the family. There's just a lot of positives, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot of people that I interact with that say, "Holy cow, this guy who has been really big for as long as I've known him." I saw Buddy in Costco this weekend. I hadn't seen him in 8 months. He's like, "I didn't recognize you," and it's both fun to hear and it's neat to know. Okay, like there's people that hopefully will be, can see, all right, this dude can lose 100 pounds. Like I can lose 20 if I need to.